Hey guys, welcome to another commentary done by Diggity and Rise. Dual commentary, haven't had one in quite some time, and we have Frozean going up against Horang2 or Horang2 if you prefer. And this is going to be part of the OSL Group J. Both these guys pretty fierce competitors. Whoever wins this goes on to face Effort in the epic match to get out of this bracket, and it's looking to be a pretty good OSL. I gotta say, I've enjoyed the maps thus far. I've enjoyed and just the level of competition right now, aside from the Zergs, which across the board seem to be dominating. It feels like everyone's at a pretty close level, except for I guess Jaedong, who's way out there, and Flash, who's way out there. But everybody else, it's like they're playing really good StarCraft. Bottom right hand corner we have Horang. Top right hand corner we have Frozean, who's got a smirk on his face. See if he's gonna pull some cheese. He is that tan color Terran in the upper right hand corner.
Well, one of the things I like to point out always is the fact that Frozean is like the laughing stock of the StarCraft universe in the past couple of seasons anyway. He's just been a really bad player, and he's a lot of fun to make fun of because he always picks really stupid names like Cute Angel and other random names that you just don't want to use in public. And really, I've just never really seen him play all that great, I think, ever. Horang2, on the other hand, I've actually seen him play a couple of good games, and like Diggity was saying, you know, the Zergs of late have been playing great. There's this hot topic of discussion that they're IMBA and all that, and really I think that, why am I talking about Zerg? Oh, sorry, Protoss player. Wow, totally messed that one up. For some reason, I just did a TVZ, so I'm a little off. But anyway, looks like Horang2 is in the 4 o'clock position, 5 o'clock position, and we got Frozean up at the top right. Diggity, what do you know about this map?
So this map is going to be Eye of the Storm, which is, I've mentioned it in a prior cast. It's almost like, it reminds me a lot of Tau Cross, just the entrances, and beyond that, it's kind of somewhere between Neo Harmony and I like saying Python. It's kind of like Python, where it has a very large, wide open middle, except for basically a lot of flanking opportunities for Protoss. And because it's so wide open, I feel like Arbiters are the way to go. You can't really go carriers. Vulture play has been extremely strong on this map just because it's so wide open past the natural secondary, and then otherwise to take additional bases past your first two bases, you have kind of that ramp up on your 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock, and I think there's actually 2 ramps to the 6 o'clock, sorry, and 12 o'clock, and that's your nearest expansion for either player, I suppose. But really feel like that's advantageous for Terran because it's a lot easier to hold those ramps or even pressure against those ramps with siege tanks. So there's been a lot of, I feel like, early pressure pushes just off Vultures or just going straight 4 or 5 factories with just one machine shop throwing a ton of Vultures out there while taking a third expansion. And I feel like it's a very biased map towards Terran in that regard. But Horang2, very intelligent player. He's a very charismatic player. He's a very creative player, and he's one of those guys that I really don't think you can count him out in any matchup. And it looks like going right off the bat, going to try to play large economy here. It looks like he went for a 14 Nexus, getting a very quick economic lead over Frozean. Let's see how Frozean decides to respond.
I think this is going to work out perfectly for Horang2 because really Frozean was going for a quick expansion himself. Not quite as quick as Horang2 went, of course, but certainly very fast. And now that gateway only now getting up and Cybernetics Core going down, but I think that he's going to be perfectly set. Frozean actually doing something very clever here. Going for a half-assed bunker rush is what I'd like to call it. It's certainly not the most serious of bunker rushes, but it's going to definitely take Horang2's probes off the line, as we see here. As a couple of Marines are actually heading it their way over. But really, I don't think this is actually going to do anything. This is more of a fake than anything else, as those probes are actually doing a great job at taking down that SCV and also potentially even that Marine. So Frozean going to have to back off, and it really looks like that's going to be, excuse me, that's going to end up being a waste for him after all.
Yeah, at the very least he was able to pull a couple probes off the line, but he's not losing too many resources. He's able to put a little economic pressure up there, not enough to really catch up, so he's still going to have to switch around and do something, I would say. But at the very least, and let's see if he actually is just going to stick to a single factory and maybe try to play economic catch-up. He's still got that 3 SCV on gas, but not really making any maneuvers. I haven't seen. I'd expected a second factory at this stage, maybe just going upgrade first to play it that direction. But right now, okay, there's that SCV. I think he's going to take the expansion right there. But really, yeah, he's going to be kind of on the economic back foot. This is a really intelligent maneuver, I think, for Horang2, especially when you know you're basically going to have to go with two-base play because you need to secure some sort of advantage once you're going out for those once you're going out for that third base. You got to have pretty sizable map control to deal with those vultures. You can see the vultures right even there wandering all over the map, and we already have a starport being built from Frozean, so thinking of maybe about a vulture drop into the back of the base, and that would make this even that'd make it even harder for Horang2 to really fight this off, because again, it's difficult to deal with vultures just on your front door with that huge wide ramp right there. With vultures dropping the back, with just not a lot of dragoons out, he could have a lot of difficulty dealing with any sort of vulture pressure on any front.
You know, another thing that I've actually seen on this map in TVP play, actually it was Firebat Hero was playing against Jehoon. This is actually a good map. If you can get a contain on that Protoss as the Terran player, you put him in a world of hurt. It can be very difficult to break out of there. So if somehow Frozean can lay down a bunch of mines in the front and start securing that with some tanks, he would be in a great position to really basically just keep Horang2 sequestered in his base, so he can't do much of anything. But like you said, he's going for this dropship play, which I also like. I think this is a good map for dropships. But Horang2, if you didn't notice, he already put a pylon down to the bottom left of his base to spot this stuff, to make sure that he's on top of it should a drop come. So really, I wonder if this is going to work out for Frozean in the end, as a vulture almost squeezes through, but Zealot's blocking off the pathway just in time.
I think it's very intelligent for two reasons, and actually, never mind, we're going to see a fleet beacon being placed. I was about to say I think it's really intelligent for two reasons. The first reason, the fact that you see Arbiter play very quickly off two base generally, so as a result, you'll see Protoss skipping a lot of dragoons, which you need to fight off those vultures, or at least keeps it thin. So if you're going drop, that opens up that back door. So in that regard, you know you can press the tech, and also having that starport in play a lot earlier, you can skip basically tech to science vessels a lot sooner. But either way, he's going to be able to spot this, and that's a lot of gas that is being produced in a Corsair to try to fight off this dropship. I don't know. I don't think that's going to stop a drop. It might pull it back. The vultures are still going to be able to drop in. It might pull it back for a second, but otherwise, maybe we're going to see Corsair and D-Web of all things in this match. Okay, there's that dropship still going to be able to sneak the vultures in, but that Corsair should be able to swing around and at least scare that dropship off. And I feel like Horang2's in a big world of hurt right now, because he's not going to have a lot of troops at all to deal with all these vultures that are swarming in the back of his base. It looks like he's already lost several probes. And keep in mind, he doesn't have a large economy to begin with off these two bases, handling this decently, but I still think he's lost, what is that, 4 or 5 probes that he cannot afford to lose, particularly going two-base tech like this.
Yeah, and Frozean actually doing a great job of miking around with those vultures, and that Corsair not doing much of anything. Corsair in PvT is an odd unit to see for sure. It'd be awesome if we saw some D-Web, and it can be very useful against large amounts of tanks, but we're just not seeing that play. There's a Wraith out as well, so that's a very interesting response coming from Frozean, a very hard counter, whereas a Corsair is kind of like that unit that just pokes at you incessantly with a little stick until you die. You know, the Wraith will take it out very quickly. But now we'll have to see what units come out next. I gotta guess that it's going to be carriers, to be honest, because that Stargate's been blinking for a while, and I haven't seen a new unit pop out of it for quite some time. And oh, it looks like Spider Mine's going off and not doing much damage at all, actually. So very well mitigated by Horang2. And Frozean now attacking that Corsair with his Wraith. It looks like he may actually take it out. No, he's going to back off at the last second, but he is starting to push in, and he is going to start to try to put up a contain of sorts. But really, if you look at the ground army, if anything, Horang2 is ahead with his ground army, and Frozean is not going to be able to contain him so easily. He's putting down an armory as well, so I guess he is looking out for those expected carriers, but we still have yet to see those come out as well.
Really, the kind of the in-between factor here is, keep in mind, no observers in play for Horang2. Because he's gone this really quick carrier build, he's dedicated to not doing anything on the ground. That's just got to be a defensive task force. He cannot run headlong, at least until he gets Zealot leg speed. And keep in mind, he skipped Templar tech, so he doesn't have the Templar archives, I'm sorry, the Citadel of Adun to get leg speed as well. So those mines are going to be very powerful, and I don't feel like he can move out on the ground at all. So he's got to get it all done in the air with these carriers, and it looks like they're going to be out just in time to deal with this, but that dropship swinging back around might get taken out by that Corsair, but not before it's able to drop 2 more vultures in, and those troops going to have to come off the front line. This is what I was talking about earlier, where Horang2 just doesn't have the troops to really spread out, and he's going to lose that Dragoon very easily. But wow, the vultures going in, and they're able to easily wreak some havoc here. Looks like he got a couple more kills, at least 2 I saw on that vulture right there, and now Frozean pressing on that front door otherwise. This is actually one of those cases where he needs to be careful, because the one thing I've seen Terran do a lot on this map is when they're ahead, when they have their Protoss opponent on the back foot, and when they have basically a semblance of a contain, they go and they press for the kill instead of taking an expansion and just basically out-macroing their opponent, and as a result they just let their Protoss opponent macro up and kill. And I really feel like that's been a big fault for Terran at large, is they just get too greedy. They're like, oh, I can push this easy. This is an easy map to push. I can totally beat this guy. And then they just overextend themselves. So right now Horang2's already got the 4 carriers up, and he might be able to push through this if Frozean it just keeps pressing with this attack, keeps moving up siege tanks instead of a large Goliath fort to just contain and deal with this. And I think he'd be much better off just a bunch of Goliaths, take your additional expansion, and just starve out Horang2 on the ground.
I agree with you completely. That's exactly what we saw happen in the Firebat Hero game against Shehun. He pushed in when he just didn't have the troop count necessary. He thought he could take him the kill. Now we're actually seeing a pretty good attack force coming in, though, for Frozean. A very slow push contained going on here. And one thing I like that he's doing is he's putting up a ton of turrets. But really, he's got to be careful with those spider mines. Same thing happened to Firebat Hero. He had spider mines inside of his units. Or right under his units, not inside of them. And really, that's something you got to be very careful about on that map when you have so many units trying to contain. But they're going to explode. Oh, that was gross. But again, I love the turret builds that he's doing. He's really doing a good job of making sure that he's got a lot of turrets to take out those interceptors. And now it's allowed him to get just enough Goliaths to really stop those carriers from harassing the push. But the carriers are actually going around the backside and trying to take out the units that are coming in, the reinforcing units, which is a great idea, because it's just security in numbers here. I mean, there's not that many Goliaths. Of course, he has pulled them all back at this point to defend, but Horang2 is picking off units where he can, and Frozean continuing to push in, though, now in range of a couple of the buildings, the Cybernetics core at the very least, and we see that Cybernetics core is actually spinning for upgrades, too. That's kind of interesting, and it looks like there are 5 or 6 carriers out, but I think he's having trouble getting his interceptor count up, and we'll have to see what happens here as we have a large Goliath force going after those carriers.
Yeah, it doesn't look like, wow, with going the tech up to carriers, he just didn't have enough troops on the ground, especially off 2 bases, and it looks like Horang2's just going to get pressed in, just kind of like one of those nice grape presses, you know, just stomped, crushed, the blood seeping out of him, violent other stuff happening. Laying down some cannons to try to delay the tanks on his front door and buy himself some time. I really don't think that's going to help. Weapons 1 has been upgraded. It looks like he's going to try, I assume he's going for Weapons 2, or I'm sorry, Horang2's going for some weapons upgrades on that Cybernetics core, which he just lost. It looks like he's going to be able to take Frozean's secondary, but on the death fight here, the fight to starve the opponent out for resources, I think Horang2's a little bit out. So maybe he can just micro these carriers, distract Frozean long enough where Frozean won't press into his base and just run him over, because I don't think he even has a Dragoon on the ground to stop that attack force, hence those cannons, just to provide a little bit of delay time. So Horang2's just betting everything on his carrier micro right here. It might pay off, but yeah, that's a formidable attack force right there.
Well, the one thing that's going for him is all of the Goliaths, or most of the Goliaths, were pulled back to deal with the carriers that are now inside Frozean's base, and these carriers really are wreaking some havoc here. They're taking out Goliaths one by one. Those Marines are very interesting units there to be just annoying the carriers, I'd say, more than anything. But now, like you said, those tanks are pushing in, and there's nothing there to fight them off. And now we can start seeing that interceptor count to thin out a little bit here, and this is when I can start to feel like Horang2's really in trouble. He had a chance, I thought, too, where he could maybe take out the natural, but after he lost that opportunity with all the Goliaths coming back, I definitely feel like he's just being eliminated faster than he could potentially eliminate Frozean instead. But wait a second, he's actually taken out almost all of those Goliaths at this point, and he's got a couple carriers at his base, and Frozean doesn't have many Goliaths at the base that he's trying to attack, and Horang2 may actually be able to pull a win out of this after all.
Yeah, he's going to have to survive, wow, elimination. Keep in mind that Armory has been taken out. It looks like a second starport being built in the left-hand corner. We're going to see a switch to Wraith to try to balance this out. If that cloaking does upgrade and if Frozean doesn't stop it very rapidly, he's just seeing it, just finishes though. Those Wraith are just going to be able to hammer. Never mind, does not finish, gets taken out. Oh, that was devastating. He lost that armory earlier, so he wasn't able to continue with the Goliath production. He didn't sneak another armory somewhere out in the field, instead sneaking a starport to try to get the Wraith out, but without that cloaking upgrade, those Wraith are just going to die so rapidly. Still the tanks hammering underneath. This is going to be an extremely close game. Who's going to win? The carriers or the tanks? The two formidable units on both sides. It looks like Frozean trying to distance mine. He's not mining at all anymore. He's lost both command centers, and it looks like the carriers at home base are going to take care of the tanks. He delayed long enough, took out all the Goliaths in support. He has no more Nexus, but it looks like he's going to come out with this game just because he was able to select just the perfect buildings to attack. Took out the armory, took out specifically the cloaking. Looks like a control tower being rebuilt. Another starport being built in the upper left-hand corner. Again, with cloaking and some starport, those Wraith should be able to cycle around, but it's too late. An observer is now in play, and it looks like Horang has in fact won this match, doing the completely unorthodox going carriers.
Beautiful job right here. I mean, this is what unorthodox play is all about, man. A build that your opponent just isn't used to playing against, and really doing a great job with it. And while he takes heavy losses in his home base, it doesn't matter. The whole point of this build is not necessarily to save all of your buildings. The whole point is to win. And right now, he's eliminating every single part of Frozean's force. He's even taken out the turrets back in his home base at this point. And really, this is going to be it for Frozean. I don't think he could possibly put together enough Wraiths where he can actually get this game back under his control. And like you said, there's an observer there, and I don't think he can even make a ComSat station. I don't know if he still has an academy or what, and there's two observers at this point just to make sure that he doesn't lose to Wraiths. And really, Horang2 doing a great job here. His cloak is finally being upgraded at the top left location where the Wraiths are. It looks like the other location, this new base, is being scouted out. Now, the one thing to note is that, as a third observer, the one thing to note here is that I don't even think there's a single probe left for Horang2. So if by any chance these carriers could be taken out, or these SCVs could survive, it doesn't look like that's going to happen though, as they get taken out by the carriers, and I'd say that at this point is probably going to be GG for Frozean.
So Frozean's best bet here is actually to just scatter his units all over the field, scatter his buildings as best he can. It looks like he's doing so now, and try to use those Wraith or whatever he's got, the SCVs, to run into Horang's base and try to knock those buildings down. Make it so that basically Horang can't just go out and attack, period. He has to stay at home base and defend what he's got while he rebuilds, and it looks like he's going to try to build some turrets in the background. He's going to try to bring his... Wow, he's actually going to make one big last stand. Again, I think he would be better off just suiciding in and attacking with those units at the bottom right hand corner, and just bringing a couple Wraiths down there so the carriers actually have to split and then run away and try to build something at the corner. I think he doesn't have enough for a command center though, so I think that might be a lost cause. Bringing it back, those Wraith are not going to last long at all. It looks like they're going to get wiped out though, and that's going to be GG right there. Well played by Horang. I gotta say that was a fantastic match, and I can't remember the last time I saw a Corsair in P versus T.
That was awesome, man. Definitely going out with style, doing a great job winning that game. And I just wanted to point out that Frozean only had like 150 minerals at the end of that game, so he could only make those last two turrets that we saw him making. I don't know why he didn't do exactly what you were saying and just kamikaze the base with the rest of the units that he had. But instead, looks like Horang2 is going to pull out the first win in this set. So let's go on to set 2. GG.